What do these seniors mean to you, especially the three core guys who were part of that first class?
Yeah, really for me, it's hard to separate them. They just, all five of these seniors, for different reasons, like I couldn't be prouder of these five seniors. I was actually texting back and forth with Amir Garrett this morning, just talking about the fact we're going to miss him at our senior day. And these are the last of the Mohicans. That first group, that first recruiting class, will always, hold a special place in my heart. And, that class produced two NBA players in Jakar and Brees Harkless, Major League Baseball prospect of Amir Garrett, the first player in my career that not only got his undergraduate degree, but also his master's degree with honors in God's gift. And two 1,000-point scorers in Phil Green and Don Pointer, and one 2,000-point scorer in D'Angelo Harrison, and five college graduates. So it's one of those classes, when I look back on my career, it's just really unique because we came here at a time where after our first year, we didn't have one single returning player with Division I experience. And that's unprecedented in my career as an assistant, as a head coach, as a broadcaster. I don't know if it'll ever happen again at this level. I think it's unlikely, like a Haley's comment, to ever happen again, where in your second year as the head coach, there's not one returning player. And yet this group that came in, that we just, that I just talked about, they've just undeniably, incrementally made progress from year to year. And as a result, have put St. John's in a position where, we're competitive again. After going through a decade or more of not being competitive, we're back to being a competitive program, and that was the goal. And now we've got work to do because we want to send them out as they deserve on a high note, with an NCAA tournament appearance. But more than whatever the outcome is over the next couple weeks, it's just the type of people they are, and to participate in their growth and development as young men and as basketball players has been a privilege and an honor, and something that I'll forever be grateful for, because it was such a unique group, not only in terms of they came from all over the world and all over the country, very New York. It's as New York as you can get, in terms of people who come from all over the world to come to New York to do something, to create a life, or to pursue a dream, or to accomplish something special. And so I think our locker room is such a microcosm of New York, and their experience the last 4 years has been very New York. Tough times, challenging times, but it's a group that just continues to move forward and forge ahead in a really admirable way. And not only in earning their college degrees, but also in terms of the numbers. The 11-1 start this year, obviously the best back to the 86 year, and our 11-2 non-conference going back a couple decades, and the 7-game win streak, and snapping the Syracuse losing streak, and positioning us once again, for the postseason. So I just, I could stay up here 5 hours talking about each one of them individually and their journey that's so unique, from the time we recruited them to their arrival to where they are now, as they come down the home stretch to the finish line. And again, independent of the wins and losses, there are just certain groups you have that are special. I call them good apples, right? Not perfect apples, but there are good apples. And this is a really good group of apples. They just, it's hard. You have to be, if you're around them enough, I think, to fully appreciate, they're all so unique, and yet they've come together in this common experience, and are doing doing some really special things as a group. And it's not easy, losing a Harkless, losing a Sampson, losing a Amir Garrett, but also you have to be happy for those individuals because they're realizing the dream in Major League Baseball. In Amir's case, a prospect for Major League Baseball with the Reds, and then obviously Jacquard and Harkless are at the highest level of basketball. And then even if you go back, Norvell never made, he never qualified, Norvell Pell, but he's still someone I stay in touch with. And Nordine Lindsay, who I still stay in touch with, who transferred. But, that's the totality of that class. And again, kind of a microcosm of, of New York. So really, really proud of him.
Steve, D'Angelo said, in his opinion, Sir Dominic is Big East Player of the Year easily. Your thoughts on where he stands in that race?
Yeah, it's interesting. For me, Archie Diacono would be hard. You can't vote for your own player, but to me, Dom, Archie Diacono would be the top two for different reasons. I think Dom, for our team, has put up numbers that are remarkable, and he's consistently put up numbers that are remarkable. As we know, he's kind of the unicorn of college basketball. He's just so unique. Nothing like him. But I think Archie Diacono, it's hard to argue because he just, he's the quarterback of a team that's going to win back-to-back Big East championships, and they don't lose. So it's a really tough league, but Villanova just doesn't lose games, and he's the quarterback who's consistently orchestrating win after win. And he has some nice complementary players around him, obviously. They're well coached, but at the end of it, Archie Diacono is kind of like the new millennium Bobby Hurley in terms of style of play and, just his ability to will Villanova to wins. So, I would think that Dom is somewhere, on the radar when it comes to, potential player of the year candidates. I think D'Angelo, clearly was hampered by his injuries. Otherwise, he would be a very strong, viable candidate for that award. But I think the month in January, from the DePaul game forward, once he got the injury on the eve of the game at DePaul, he's clearly been hampered. But it speaks volumes that he's navigated through and has played with pain and found a way to help us accumulate wins here late, and has stepped up big to make the key shots and the key free throws to help salt victories away.
Have you heard, what do other coaches say about the winner? Are they as...
So into we're so, I think, occasionally, Kevin Willard and I text, and Jay Wright and I will text, on occasion, but for the most part, other than when we see the coaches before the game and you give them a handshake, it's the off season more that we get a chance to, socialize when we're recruiting in the stands or if we're at the Big East coaches meetings. But haven't had the opportunity to speak with any of the coaches specifically about Player of the Year candidates or about where Dom, fits into.
Do you think that people realize how great a year he's having, that people want his numbers?
Yeah, I think clearly there's even just nationally, independent of our coaches in the league, I think people have begun to gain a better appreciation for what a unique basketball player Don Pointer is. And I would imagine that includes coaches, and yet he hasn't received a Big East Player of the Week award, which is pretty unique. Pretty surprising. He's been consistent in terms of getting the honorable mention, is it?
Yeah.
The honorable mention, but he's yet to receive the actual Player of the Week. But I think he has been the Player of the Year, and clearly Players of the Month. If they were in a Player of the Month's award, I think he would get it for January, February.
Steve, the personality of this group during the first 3 years, it had a tendency to, when it looked like things were good, to ease up on the accelerator. Do you think that they've changed?
Yes, it's interesting. I just think it's a group that they tried too hard at times. I see it so differently. I think the biggest inhibitor was it's a group that, unlike the other 8 teams in this league, really the only 2 teams in this league, DePaul and us, were the only ones that don't have members on the roster that have been in the NCAA tournament. And because of that unique, unprecedented situation of, we go to the NCAA in year 1, but we don't get any residue. There's no carryover or value from the first, year here when we go to the tournament, because the entire roster, including Poli, because he would be in this mix with these guys, not this year, but he would have graduated last year. So I think the biggest inhibitor has just been, hey, they want a couple things. One is losing Harkless and Chakar and Amir, let's face it, that's one factor. But I think the other is that when you want something so bad, that can inhibit your ability to perform to the best of your abilities. And we see that, in all sports. And this group at times has put too much pressure on themselves, and what I call the boulders on the shoulders effect, because it's coming from a good place. Like I thought last year at Providence, when we fell down, we played uptight for probably 30 minutes of that game in the Big East tournament. It wasn't really till the last 10 minutes that they finally kind of cut loose and started to play without that weight on their shoulders. The other night, Xavier, when I called that timeout down 11-0, it was clear. They were just coming from a good place. They were just anxious and uptight. And you can feel that like a parent with their child, and that's when your feet don't move to get a 50-50 ball, or, you come up short on free throw after free throw, you come up short on layup after layup. That's when that performance anxiety sets in. You're trying so hard, you want it so bad that it inhibits your ability to actually achieve your objectives. And that's the difference of having a veteran group,
These guys do want it clearly very badly.
Sure.
But you don't think that they're in danger of having that inhibit their ability to reach their goal?
No, I think this group has navigated through, and now that's why those games, that was, to be able to recognize that, hey, when you're playing uptight, how to lose yourself to the game on the defensive side of the ball, how to stay after it, and be able to counter punch. So that this team's made a lot of growth, but that's a process. It's not. I think from the very beginning, there's such a. We talk about good apples, good eggs, right? I mean, sometimes you have a group that's so conscientious, so caring, wants it so bad. If anything, as the coach, what you need to do is tell them to take a deep breath and to kind of enjoy this moment. We went through it with that my first year with that other group, very similar. But because they had never had success, they had never been in the tournament. There wasn't a single player on the roster that had been in the NCAAs. So for 5 years here, I've coached teams that didn't have one player that had ever been in the NCAA tournament, and the only other team is DePaul that's in that situation. But because the other 8 teams, they've all been to Final Four, Sweet 16s, Elite 8s, NCAA. It's just a regular for the other 8 teams in this league. But we inherited a major rebuilding project, and we knew that. We signed on for it. But one of the challenges has been that you don't have anyone that's ever been to the place we're trying to go, other than the coach. So, but I don't play the game, so that therein lies been our biggest challenge. Number one was recruiting, and then number 2 is in recruiting, coaching a group that's never been there before. So, and we're closer. Every year we've got a little bit closer. So I think this group has kind of learned, if anything, it's somewhere in between. It's not pedal to the metal, because that's where you're trying too hard, and there's this balance that you need to perform at a high level where you're playing, you lose yourself to the game, and the defensive end of the floor is the best way to do it. And you stay tied together as a group in solving problems and using your ingenuity and coming up with solutions to whatever situation presents itself in a game. And that's where this group has continued to improve. And hey, you just stay with it, And I'm really proud of the way this group has been able to persevere and kind of navigate through that, but it's not easy.
In terms of, how close to full health they are,
Yeah.
Harrison and Obekla?
Chris seems, just watching him the other night, it seems like he's closer to being in full strength. just his, his ability to get up and down the floor, the number of minutes he played, and didn't seem hampered at all. D'Angelo still is struggling, clearly, with his injuries. And Rashid has been good of late. So I think it was really the good start. We had about a month there where it's well chronicled, well documented with all the injuries, and then we're in a better place now than we were in that month of January, but not out of the woods because of D'Angelo's health issues.
Did he practice yesterday?
No.
Okay, so you guys haven't practiced since Monday?
Exactly. Yeah, we took advantage of this week, and we had 2 days in prep for Georgetown, but just kind of refueled, regenerated, and
You expect them?
fortunate.
You expect them obviously both to play though, Saturday?
Yes. Yeah.
In your previous 11 seasons,
Yeah.
do you find that your seniors, the motion of senior night
Yes.
helps them? Or-
No, it's both. It's a mixed bag. We've lost on senior day, and we've also won. I think it's a combination of who you're playing and who's on the other team. And then what we are mindful of is, as best we can, navigate, that emotional, that natural emotional element that's in play on a senior day, but try as best as possible to stay as close to our normal routines, as possible. So there's this, on the one hand, we want to, that's why I thought good that we had a certain kind of senior day, kind of a senior day here at Carnesecca that we, improvised and kind of organically came together at the end of the Seton Hall game, because it is a certain type of senior day once the last game at Carnesecca, but then also we have one at the Garden. It's officially the last home game since the Big East tournament's not seen as our home court. But I think, and I've been on the other side where we went, we played at Stanford, Mark Madsen's senior day. They were #1 in the country, undefeated, I think, and went in there and upset him in overtime on a buzzer shot by Jerron Rush. I think it was 2000, March. And I remember talking to Mark Madsen after the game, and they felt that probably this senior day with an undefeated team and being #1 in the country and trying to hold on to the #1 seed, all those factors in a CBS game, it probably was a distraction for them, So I've seen it on both sides. But hopefully, because this group has been through, a number of situations, that their ability to kind of calibrate, stay focused on the task at hand, and lock in on our objectives of preparing for Georgetown. And I'll talk about these next 2 days about and they've seen some of their other guys go through. They saw Gift go through in Orlando and Marco go through senior day. So some of their managers that they're friends with, the managers of the team. So.